But first, we have a listener question for this week, and it comes from Kasande Lubasi. I hope I'm saying that right. I think Kasande is from Africa and actually left this question in a comment on an episode of the show from last year. How will the pandemic change the church? But Kasande asks, what are your thoughts on churches trying to be more relevant to the culture and to young people by making their services cooler and more impressive and trendy? And again, Kasande asks this in the context of this approach to church services being exported to many African countries. So I don't know that we can speak to what it looks like in Africa, but the basic question is something that we've definitely thought about and talked about amongst ourselves. Churches trying to be more relevant by making their services specifically cooler, more impressive, more trendy. So, Abigail, let me throw it to you first. What are your thoughts on that? And I guess what what are the implications for that model being exported to other parts of the world?
I don't know if I have an answer to that part, but when I read your question, I think the first thing that really I started thinking about is why do we do this? Like, why are we subconsciously, or maybe very consciously, trying to um, sort of make our church services look very much like maybe rock concerts, which is what was described in the question. Um, and I think part of that obviously is the attraction value, right? Like some entertainment, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing because we see that in Jesus's day too. Jesus was pretty exciting to go and watch. So I don't think that there's necessarily something inherently wrong with attraction because we hope that there is attraction to Jesus and what he's doing. Like, and I think so. Maybe a good question to ask ourselves is there something going on here that is worth coming to see for people? I do think having it then look like a rock concert is maybe not the direction that we would want to go. And I think another aspect is we all feel like pretty comfortable with rock concerts. We're all used to them, like they're fun. You can really hide in a rock concert as well. Like it gets dark in there and you can just like hide in the crowd, not get singled out. And so, one of the reasons why I feel so passionate about house church ministry is that hopefully, while you can't hide in them at all, it's a terrible place to hide. Um, it is actually a great place to invite people into or go to them so that they do feel comfortable. And so, I actually think that maybe we should take hold of those aspects of what we're doing as a big church. I don't just want to like throw it all out and just say this is evil. Instead, I want to look and see why are they doing it? Like what good is there and how can we then apply it in maybe a much more positive way? I think as far as his cultural question there, as far as what's going on in Africa and maybe other parts of the world, I really, that part makes me very sad because I would think if anything, the culture of the country should remain true in its worship of Jesus because he is for all people and all nations. So it makes me sad that we've kind of cornered a market, so to speak, there. But hopefully, I covered a couple of things there that I think we can all use in our own churches and our own ministry that I don't think are bad. I just think it's how we're answering those questions. What do you guys think?
I think I'm gonna get you in there real quick, but I think
Mhm.
the one of the words that stood out in the question was relevance. You know,
Mm,
the church is trying to be more relevant, and I think that plays into this because there is a sense that the church is becoming less relevant to culture and society. I think a lot of us within American Christianity feel that, and so maybe there has been a push towards trying to make it more attractive, trying to make it more entertaining. But yeah, Keith, what are your thoughts on the question or what Abby has shared so far?
Well, me and Abby are like 90% synced up. I think she might have looked at my notes or something, even
oh,
though I didn't
yeah.
write them down. Maybe we've just been all working together so long that our answers
Man.
become.
I know.
But I was recently listening to a podcast by Chris Broussard. He's a basketball commentator, really great guy, in my opinion. But he's a believer too, so I love that, because you get a little bit of both, But he touched on the culture part of that, so I'll kind of save that part for last. But as far as the church trying to stay relevant and doing some of these things, I mean, I agree. I think some of it is for entertainment, and I don't think it's all bad. Like, as far as, I wouldn't go outright to say it's evil. Like, obviously you don't want the church to conform, with its morals and its beliefs and the scriptures. Like, you really can't water it down, because, yeah, you just lose everything. But if you're doing things for the sake of getting people in your community, trying to, bump into normal people who wouldn't normally go to a church service or something like that. And I think being relatable and being relevant to those people sometimes can be a good thing, So, of course, the proof is in the pudding. So when you get down to business, like, what are you instilling to them? Like, how are you giving them Jesus? How are their lives being transformed? I think are the important questions. So luckily for ministries like ours, we can't afford all of that stuff. So we'll never have a jazzy church
I want a
service or
smoke
anything.
machine, man.
That's right.
I know, right? Walk out and have an intro song and everything. But so I'm not sure we'll come into that problems, but who knows? If we get partnered up with a local church and the local body, and we're wrestling through some of those issues that might come up.
Yeah.
But as far as the culture thing, Abby, I love what you said, because I think that's very true. I think one of the things they brought up on that podcast was assimilation, and how some people do have to assimilate to almost the culture of Christianity and not Christ himself, So, like, one of the guys' questions was, why would a guy in Africa be wearing like this really nice suit in the middle of like a really hot place, like looking American, and taking on that motto? Is because they've seen it so much, and they've conformed to that. So I pray that those guys are still effective and that they're still able to help people. But I agree that the culture should. Jesus can impact people in the culture. They don't have to assimilate to something else.
Yeah, I would say from I think all of us would agree on this, that we're not anti modern church in America as far as the approach.
Be honest, Andrew. Don't be it.
You're gonna get me in trouble. I'm being honest. We are not.
Stop stirring that pot, man.
What I would say is that we do, going back to the idea of being relevant, like, of course, like that's we're seeking to be relevant as well. So as ambassadors of Christ, we should be seeking to be relevant. So I see what's being described in this question, trying to be more entertaining, more trendy. It is coming from a good place, the desire to be more impactful in the society that you are a part of. So that's one thing I would say. And we're not doing everything right, for sure. Like, there's ways that we could try to be more relevant. Those of us who are doing non-traditional church, doing house church. But the desire to be relevant is a good thing, because we are missionaries, we are ambassadors to the larger culture. But I think the roots of it really go back to our model and our methods. And I didn't plan on this to sync up with our main topic today, the Timothy principle, but I think the model for a lot of churches, and especially this move to become more attractional, it really is rooted in the tradition of the church in general, which is a very Sunday service heavy model. And so it becomes a question of, how can we make the Sunday service more attractive, more effective? And we kind of put all of our eggs in the basket of what happens on Sunday morning. And our understanding of church is just much broader than that. We've got 7 days to accomplish the work that we need to accomplish. And that gives us a lot more freedom. And we can put less pressure on what happens in this small window of time on Sunday morning. And then the other thing I'd say, like, our metrics are probably off. If you're Sunday service oriented, then the most obvious metric is the number of people that show up on Sunday. So because that indicates that you're more relevant, that people are wanting what it is that you're offering. But that's not necessarily a good metric. Jesus had thousands of people coming to him, and John 6 is a passage that we're all familiar with. Jesus fed 5,000, and by the end of the chapter, he had 12. And he was okay with that because he wasn't just trying to draw a crowd. And if he had been, he could have continued to do what he did, which was provide food, something that people would really want, but wouldn't necessarily sync up with what Jesus was really there to offer, which is to usher in a kingdom. So I think that's what I would say, is that we've been too dependent on the Sunday morning service in general as the church, and therefore it's only natural that we would try to spice that up as much as possible to get more people.
Right.
But that's not really the goal. The goal is not to get more people for the sake of having more people. It's to really see people reconnect with God and live these transformed lives. So I do think it's a good point too, though, that what happens in America does tend to have weighted influence in the world at large, whether that's Hollywood or whether that's within, the Christian society. So yeah, I don't know if you guys want to add anything on there before we shift to our main topic, but those are some of my thoughts.
The only reason why I was stirring the pot a little bit is just saying that if that statement is true, which I know it is, like we don't have to put any disclaimers out no more, like people who listen to us and know us well, they should know. Come on, like we don't have to,
hey, well, we're gonna hit it big any second, and we're gonna have so many.
I don't mind people who don't drive Jeeps. I just have a problem. It's like if you keep saying it, man, it's like, but go ahead.
That's true. If you have to keep saying it, then you probably do. Yeah. You protest too much, as they say. Well, I do think that especially the cultural thing, I don't think we can't do much about it other than, acknowledge that that's not necessarily the greatest thing, right? I mean, my kids and I were watching this amazing kids cartoon the other day, but it's an Australian cartoon, and it was the Christmas episode. And I actually noticed that they had like a fireplace on their TV, and then they all went swimming, but there was like some holdovers of like American Christmas culture mixed in there, even though it did not fit at all. And it reminded me of when I lived in New Zealand. Like Santa wore a normal big coat and everything, and I'm like, it's summer, like why are we doing this? So I think we can't help as a very in your face culture to not influence, but I think maybe that's a challenge for us. What do we want to have being passed on from the American church? Is it really the smoke screen and the rock and band, or are there other things that we would rather be the things that we're influencing? So that's my final word.
Yeah, it could be the nature of the beast, because obviously the larger, more production style Sunday services, they are being broadcast out. But it does tie in with why we're doing this show, is because we do, in some ways, what we're trying to, the approach we're taking is very local, it's very small scale, it's very person to person. And that's a model that doesn't get a lot of airtime. Yeah. So we do the show, we have the YouTube channel, because we do want to encourage more and more of God's people that there are other ways to go about the mission of Jesus that don't require the smoke machine, that don't require the professional musicians, and might even be more effective at making disciples. So really appreciate this question, and we will take questions however you want to give them to us. If you are watching on YouTube and you have a question that comes to mind, type it in the comments. We will see it, try to respond to it, and even address it on the show like this one. Or if you want to connect with us directly, you can hit us up on Instagram or Facebook, or you could send us an email at info@intotheharvest.org.
Smooth.
Appreciate it. It helps us be more relevant to what you guys are facing in the harvest, which is what we want this show to be about. And if you have problems with us stirring the pot, address all of those to Keith, because he doesn't think it's an issue. So it's all on you, brother.
Is it
That's
just
right.
his first name?
It's Lakeith at intotheharvest.org. All the hate mail goes to.
No, it's Lakeith at intotheharvest.org. Send your
apostrophe
thoughts
before the LA.
No.
It's just LAK.
All right,
we can't
guys.
wait to hear about your mail. Okay.